Avatar Meher Baba ki Jai. We start with chart 10, which is just below this page. Finish the understanding of chart 10 and then go back to the main book. Chart 10. Chart 10 brings out the details pertaining to the process of evolution up to the human form and the process of realization to the state of a God realized being. The innermost small circle, which is referred to by S, represents the individual soul. The soul is shown as having an increasing number of circles around itself up to the human stage, and it is shown as retaining all these circles later on. The second circle, which is next to the soul, represents consciousness.
What is the page number, Karthik?
I am on 231 of the main book.
Okay, okay, okay.
Yeah, chart 10. So, in fact, I'll pause here and show you the chart, right? And then we'll come back and spend more time discussing the chart like we did yesterday. But I wanted to start by just showing you the chart. So, here are the concentric circles referred to, which go on increasing. We'll come and do a detailed review later. Then you go to humans, human being, advance through the planes, and then the master, God realized person, right? So this is what we are going to understand in the text. Okay. So with that, I will go back. Okay, the soul is shown as having an increasing number of circles around itself up to the human stage, and it is shown as retaining all these circles later on. The second circle, which is next to the soul, represents consciousness, which goes on increasing up to the human form, but afterwards it remains constant. In evolution, vegetables acquire most undeveloped instinct, but not the subtle body, which emerges in an undeveloped form in worms and reptiles. This subtle body goes on developing until it is fully developed in the human form. Side by side with the development of the subtle body, there is a simultaneous development of instinct. Intellect, in its partial development, makes its first appearance at the stage of animals, but the mental body appears only at the last stage, represented by the human form. In the human form, the first innermost circle represents the individual soul, the next outer circle represents full consciousness, and then the outer circles, in the order on which they are drawn, respectively represent the seat of individuality, sanskaras or unexpressed desires, intellect, felt desires of the mental body, subtle body, in which there's a partial expression of desires, and the gross body, in which the desires come to be fully expressed. All the circles around the innermost circle of the soul, with the exception of the first circle of consciousness, are layers of consciousness. Of these layers, the outermost circle and the circle next to it respectively represent the gross and the subtle bodies, while the other four layers around consciousness represent four functions of one mental body. Of these four functions of the mental body, two, felt desires and intellect, are usually included under mind, and the other two, sanskaras or unexpressed desires and the seat of individuality, are included under the ego. Thus, at the human stage, the soul, with its consciousness, has three bodies but six layers, including the gross layer known as the gross body. When, after reincarnations, the human soul launches upon the process of realization, intellect is replaced by inspiration, which finds its expression from the first to the third plane and from the fourth to the sixth plane. This inspiration is transformed into illumination. The colored rings or concentric circles represent the soul of a God realized person with all the vehicles at his disposal. In respect to this diagram, the following points should be carefully noted. The three outer rings represent the gross, subtle, and mental bodies. We find all these bodies also in ordinary human beings. In the God realized person, there has emerged a new spiritual body known as the universal body or Mahakarana Sharira, which is the seat of the universal mind. Just as water is contained in a cup, the universal mind may be said to be contained in the universal body. Therefore, though the universal body and the universal mind are represented by two different circles, they are inseparable from each other. The universal mind of the master, which works through his universal body, is in direct contact with the mental bodies of all the individual souls in creation, and it can, through these mental bodies, bring about any changes in the mental, subtle, or gross worlds. Though the master has a mental body like ordinary humans, he always works only through his universal mind. In the master's soul, the limited ego of the human stage is transmuted into the unlimited ego. The feeling of separateness and narrow individuality is replaced by the realization of unlimited, indivisible, and all comprehensive existence. The soul of the master is endowed with infinite consciousness. The full consciousness at the human stage does not reveal or express the infinity of the soul owing to the limitation of samskaras. But in the God realized person, this full consciousness is not limited by any samskaras, and therefore it reveals or expresses the infinity of the soul. So I'll now go back to appreciate and understand the diagram.
How many people have understood what has been read? It's one of the toughest part of the book.
I have not understood completely.
Not understood. Sorry.
So Tushar, why don't you walk us through this diagram?
We will do this. Mark this as to be read again. Please do that. Yeah.
But shall we just use the diagram to maybe understand a little more?
I am not able to see, so I was trying to locate I have a Hindi version.
But the book, the Hindi book also has it. It's a flap.
But I just try to find it. I'm not able to locate it. Page numbers are different.
It's a flap. It's a fold-out diagram.
There are so many of them.
Oh, okay.
All of them are flaps, and there are so many charts.
Oh, okay. So anyway, if you can click on the image and try to blow it up, it should show up on the screen. Just try that. Just click on the team's image. It should increase in dimension.
Let's have Kama come in because I think he is more experienced with this book.
Is he on the call?
I think he is there. I think.
Yeah.
Guruji, boliye.
Well, what can I say? I think it is just the same thing that yesterday's part 9 that we discussed. Here it is shown in a different graphical manner where basically after each kingdom, I think somebody has to mute their voice. So I believe that each of these kingdoms, as you go, you keep increasing your sanskaras, which is called winding sanskaras, as we know. So each of those circles, and also I think here it is shown basically the development of the subtle body in the worms and reptiles, and then the development of the mental body only at the human stage. And then what we are seeing is basically after the human stage, when we go through the planes of involution, that each of the planes, as you know, the first, second, and third plane had to do with the subtle body. Fourth plane is at the threshold level. And the fifth and sixth is the mental body and the mental sphere. So, it's just an extrapolation of yesterday's chart 9. So unless somebody asks me some specific questions, then I can try to answer that.
Okay, so I think what I suggest is I will just read out what's on the diagram and also show the diagram on the screen, and maybe that will help us understand a little more. Is that fine?
Yeah.
What is the meaning of vegetables having just the instinct and not the subtle body? Can you explain?
Instinct, as we know, in terms of, there are certain plants, plants have pollination. There are certain plants which eat insects. So I think that is a form of animal instinct, most developed, undeveloped instinct. And subtle body has to do with energy. So there is also movement. When you look at worms and reptiles and vegetables, the difference is that the plant kingdom, they are fixed, whereas the worms and reptiles have the ability to move, the freedom to move. That is one differentiation. So you can say that the subtle body comes in. And another thing that Baba has also talked about is like when you look at the the way the posture, stones and metals are basically flat.
Yeah.
Then the plants, trees start to raise up. uh, And then the worms and reptiles basically are again on the horizontal position, able to move on their four legs. Then, as you see, the birds are able to fly. Then the animals, when you look at the gorilla, it's able to stand on its two legs. And then we are looking at human beings who are basically vertical. So I think these are the different aspects which relate to the subtle body and the mental body, development.
Okay.
So I'll just go over the diagram. So in the stone and metal, there is the soul, and then there's a circle representing the consciousness, and around it, the gross body. There's a color only partially, so there must be a significance even for that, because color, the pink color, is not completely on the circle in most circles. So I think this is a very sophisticated diagram which we are probably not able to completely make sense of. So from there you go to the vegetable state, where now there is a new circle which is the most undeveloped instinct. So like Kama said, probably it's just the seed of this idea of instinct, but it's available probably in the last species in that kingdom, and it's just going to get pronounced when we go up. So with that, we go to the worms and reptiles. There's one more circle now. So consciousness is more. Then you have the little developed instinct. So it's not fully developed like in an animal. And then the undeveloped subtle body takes shape. And then finally you have the gross body in the last one. From there, you go to the fish, which has more developed instinct, little developed subtle body, little more than what it was in the worm, and consciousness keeps increasing. From there, you go to the birds, more developed subtle body, still more developed instinct, and consciousness, of course, increases. Animals, still more developed subtle body, fully developed instinct. So what started in the vegetable as just the seed of instinct, fully developed instinct, partially developed intellect, and then consciousness is partial. It's though it is increased even at the animal stage, this is only a partial consciousness. From there, there are two stages on the human, multiple. First is the ordinary human, gross. So here you have the soul circle, followed by the ego circle, sanskaras, which are unexpressed desires in the seat of individuality. The consciousness is full, and from there you no hold on. First you have this S circle, the small circle. Then the black circle after the small circle is the ego, where the consciousness is full, and Outside that, you have the seat of individuality, the pink circle, right? And outside that, you have another black circle, which is the mind, the circle of the mind. Mental body, desires are felt, and that's the seat of intellect. That's the black circle, gentlemen. After that, you have a pink circle, which is, oh, the pink circle is intellect, sorry. So mental body, and then outside that is intellect. And then you have subtle body with the black circle, and just on it, desires expressed partially with the pink circle, right? And then finally, the big circle is the gross body. From there, we go to a human being advancing through the third plane, gross body being desires expressed fully. So first is the soul, first circle. Around that is the Around that is the ego circle, which is the same one. The pink one continues to be the seat of individuality. The black one is the sanskaras. I mean, that's the circle of the mind, where mental body and sanskaras are in the black part. And from intellect, you move to inspiration, because you are now in the third plane, in the pink circle. From there, you go to the mental body, and the last one before gross body is the subtle body, where the desires are expressed partially with the pink line, right? So again, so if you see the coloration of the final circle, there's partial pink and partial black. So I think we need some help for sure to master this diagram, if that is required for a full appreciation of the book. Human being advancing through the sixth plane. So here we have the soul, followed by the next circle is the black circle. Consciousness is now full. It's the ego circle, with the pink one being the seat of individuality. Outside that is the mind, samskaras, again mental body where the desires are felt, and illumination, which continues on in the pink circle. Then you have the circle of the mental body, and then finally you have the subtle body with desires expressed partially. From there, you go to the God realized soul, where gross body is outside. Let's start again from inside. So there is the soul. Then you have infinite consciousness in the yellow circle, unlimited divine ego, which he explained in the last paragraph, universal mind. So the universal mind acting like the cup of water, where the water is everywhere, but then the cup is just a representation to describe how the universal mind works. And in a God realized soul, he is able to read and work with the minds of all the people. From there, you have the universal body. This is that Mahakarana Sharira, I think. Then you have the mental body, which is the green circle, the subtle body, which is the blue circle, and the gross body, which is the indigo outside. So again, I think we've made an attempt to get some more through the diagram, but we will park this and come back, as Tushar says, for later.
Karthik,
Yeah.
hold the diagram for a few minutes.
Sure.
If you see the human body,
Yeah.
there is an arrow which is showing from the soul towards the gross body in the ordinary humans.
1 second. I'll have to get
This
it.
diagram.
Yeah, ordinary.
Yes.
Yeah.
Soul to the gross body, there is an arrow.
Correct. Pointing both
And
sides.
in the next developed, it is soul to the subtle body.
Oh yes, correct. Like
And
here.
in the next diagram, it is soul to the mental body.
Ah, okay.
That is one we need to understand that. And then the other one is all round. You see, it is labeled as bubble. What is the
Yes,
meaning of that?
that was not referred also in the
Ah,
text we
ah,
saw, but everywhere bubble word is there. Yes.
yes, yes.
So,
The
but that's a
bubble,
good
There are a lot of
distinction.
things here.
Mhm.
We need
bubble means,
to.
bubble means a circle. Okay, there are bubbles within bubbles here.
Yes.
Ah, maybe.
And see, I was talking of individuality the other day. Here is where it can be explained. See, ego has two parts, as we know. I'll use my own terms as I've learned. Ego has two parts: uh, individuality and personality. Okay, so here the three circles inside where is mentioned of individuality. That is the individuality, and the rest of the bodies, mental body, subtle body, the bliss body, causal body, all they are a part of our personality. And personality is what we have to drop. We have to go towards individuality. Yeah, Mama, you wanted to say something.
These straight lines which I referred to. So we are gross conscious, ordinary human beings, we are gross conscious. So when we move to the third plane, we become subtle conscious.
Correct.
Our consciousness will be at the level of the subtle body. So when we move to the sixth plane, it is at the mental consciousness.
Mental body.
Consciousness is at the mental level. So that is represented by those lines, probably. That is how I
Of
look
course.
at it.
Of course. So if you go to the earlier chart, right, that's exactly the transition. Not this. Where is the other one? The first one in the divine theme charts talks of the seven layers. I'm just trying to get to that.
7 planes.
Seven planes. We saw it 2 days back. I'll open it up, and
Uh-huh.
there clearly what you just mentioned is covered in detail diagrammatically. Right. So that's
Uh-huh.
again a reference to that. But good catch. I mean, you saw the
Yes, yes.
arrow justifying that.
One thing I wanted to add was that the difference between chart 9 and chart 10, I realized is that in chart 9, it shows you the evolution of forms, the different kingdoms. And here in chart 10, what we are seeing is evolution of consciousness from no consciousness, from low consciousness to reaching full and complete consciousness in the human form, but having samskaras. And then after that, from the first plane to the sixth plane, the dissolving of the sanskaras. So you are dealing with subtle body and subtle sphere from first plane to third plane. Fourth plane is the threshold between the subtle and the mental plane. And fifth and sixth, you're dealing with the mental body and the mental sphere. And then seventh plane is union, basically.
Correct.
Sorry, these diagrams, each point has a meaning. So we need to decipher at every level. Whatever we have gone through till now in text is represented graphically here.
Very
So
true.
we need to, yeah.
I think, as I said, this also, if we can get some online reference which explains this better, it would be very, very useful.
Yes, yes.
Yeah. So, this is another one. This is the Ivy Do's uh, class diagrams I'm seeing, but she has created probably. Okay. Anyway, I don't want to. Let's get back to the reading.
When we take external sources, we should be very sure it is authentic because
Exactly.
on the internet, a lot of places, Baba has been misquoted. Baba had one, if you remember, a staunch follower somewhere it is mentioned, and he became his number one enemy, one Mr. Dastur. And he's created a lot of anti-Baba statements, which is all floating on the net. So be careful about it.
Is it the Dastur in his time who printed
Yeah,
the
exactly.
handbills? And
He was a staunch follower,
One of his earliest Mandali, actually.
one of the earliest. Yeah,
okay.
Dasturs are priests actually.
Priest, yeah, that's the title.
Yeah, title.
Yeah, it's a title.
So be very careful, and because I typed this thing, Baba and Theosophy on Google.
Mhm.
I found a lot of people have put things in the name of Theosophy against Baba. And somewhere Baba has given a clarification that I have been misquoted.
Oh, okay.
So a lot of things are controversial. You have to have the authentic sources of Baba. So that is the reason I don't follow any individual's prophecy, whatever they be. I read and follow only Baba.
No, no,
So,
that's so true. It's so even in this exercise, the internalization and learning should be individual.
Yeah.
Our only attempt is to try to get different points of view to help the journey. But then we should understand directly what Baba is trying to imply in each.
Exactly, exactly. We should
so
have authentic source of Baba himself.
Correct.
So, Karthik, I can add one thing to your thing. Instead of looking for outside references, which I have not seen any,
Mhm.
I can tell you based on my experience of reading God Speaks and Discourses, the more you read and contemplate, you know, there was a part which we, excuse me, there's a part where we read where there are three ways of reading, to absorb this, and what I have observed in my own experience is that as you keep reading and absorbing it, automatically you start getting insights. So there is no need for you to really go refer, unless you can want to refer other messages and other books of Baba, like New Humanity or Beams or Life at its Best, and on so on and so.
True,
Yeah,
very true.
I agree.
Because
And
each reading uncovers something else that you did not think of earlier, right? So that's a point well taken. Tushar.
I think we should stick to whoever are the participants here right now. Yeah, I think Kama has pretty experience. He can share his comments.
Sure. Okay, so with that, we get back to the main book, page 76, part 8, the beyond state of God, the first urge, and the cycle of evolution and involution of consciousness. The beyond state of God. To begin with the beyond the beginning, there is the original state of the beyond state of God, or Paratpara Parabrahma. This is the original state of God is. In Sufi terms, this state is to be said the state of Vara ul Vara. In this original state of God is, unbounded, absolute vacuum prevails. In this absolute vacuum, there is neither any manifestation of the consciousness, of the conscious or unconscious state of God, nor is there manifestation of the consciousness or unconsciousness of God. Neither is there the unlimited I, the divine ego, or the universal ego, nor is there the limited I or the individual ego. Neither is there universal mind, nor is there limited mind. Neither is there unbounded energy, nor is there limited energy. Neither is there the universal body, the Mahakarana Sharira, nor is there the limited body. Neither are there universes, nor are there worlds. There is not even consciousness of either the consciousness, Maha Chaitanya, or of the unconsciousness. This state is absolutely the original, unbounded, absolute vacuum state of God, neither the Nirguna Nirakara nor the Saguna Sakara states of God where God is and consciousness is not. When it is said God is, it describes the state which prevails beyond the beginning of creation. I have to read the previous paragraph again.
Let me
This
come
state,
here.
sure.
God is the same as other people say I am. And at Theosophy, we say beingness, Sat. Sat is the Sanskrit word for that. I mean, in prayers, you would have heard Tat Sat very often. That Sat is this, God is.
Okay.
And I am is also used, and there is whole, as you know, that you following on I am. It's based on this only.
Okay. Okay. So I wanted to read this last paragraph again. This state is absolutely the original, unbounded, absolute vacuum state of God. Neither the Nirguna Nirakara nor the Saguna Sakara state of God, where God is and consciousness is not. When it is said God is, it describes the state which prevails
Can I
beyond the
disturb?
beginning of creation. Go ahead.
This one, this original, unbounded, absolute vacuum state of God, neither Nirguna Nirakara nor Saguna Sakara.
Sakara. Yeah.
Is this the Shunya of Buddhist philosophy? This is for Kamakoti. Hello?
Kama, maybe you're speaking on mute, but I'm not aware of that. But I know Buddhists refer to Shunya.
Yes,
Kama?
we can discuss this later.
Yes,
Kama.
sure.
Yeah, sorry, I was out of the mic. I'll tell you, Nirguna Nirakar, according to the meaning, is attributeless, formless, and Saguna Sahakar is attributes with form. Saguna Sahakar. Now,
Yes.
this particular paragraph, later on, when we come to page number 160, where it talks about 10 states of God, it is much more well explained because it says in this particular beyond state, it can never be defined. Okay. It says that, I'll just quote something. We have already stated that the beyond state of God can never be adequately described. God realized beings, when they try to describe the beyond state, succeed only to describing the beyond state of God, which is the Allah of Sufis, the Ahura Mazda of Zoroastrians, the Paramatma of Vedantists, God the Father of Christians, and the oversoul of some philosophers. God in the beyond state is absolute, unlimited, and infinite, the one without a second. So basically, you'll be coming across there are 10 states, but this is the most original state, which is equivalent to what I believe is the sound sleep state that we all go through. So this is just my opinion.
I want to speak here. This all is explained in the course of what we are going to read, but this is that stage which is before even the differentiation of the self.
Exactly.
Correct.
This pre-whim stage.
Exactly.
And which is this very stage we again come back, but there is a difference, which will be explained by Baba in the subsequent pages.
Yeah, I think the best way to understand this is the stage before the whim, like you said, right? So when it is said God is, it describes the state which prevails beyond the beginning of creation.
Correct. And there is no second, as Kama said.
Correct.
It's secondless state.
Correct.
So let's read this.
Yeah. This state of God is also called the original divine sound sleep state of God. There you go, Kama. In the beyond state. The God is state is the state of infinitude, and infinitude by virtue of being infinite is everything. That is, everything is the nature of infinitude. That was, I have to read it again. The God is the state of infinitude. Infinitude by virtue of being infinite is everything. That
Yeah,
is,
here we
everything is the nature of infinitude. Okay.
here we
Go
have
ahead.
to differentiate between what we understand as everything. Okay. What we understand as everything is nothing but illusion or Maya. It is actually nothing. Okay. And this nothingness or shunya is everything. It's a little bit difficult to understand, but that is how it is.
Everything, by virtue of being everything, embodies even nothing, or else everything can never mean everything. This nothing is latent in the everything, but nothing, being literally nothing, the very being of being nothing, is nothing at all. But I'll read the last line again. But nothing, being literally nothing, the very being of being nothing is nothing at all. Okay. As this nothing is latent in the everything, the nothingness of the nothing is embedded in the everything as the latency. Thus, in the infinitude of God is state, all that is latent in the nature of infinity, which is everything, is the nothing. Therefore, anything that is latent in everything is of the nothing. Wow. In short, except except for the infinity of the infinitude, all things are latent in the God is state of everything, and all that is latent is of the nothing with all its aspects as nothingness. In the God is state, where the nothing is latent, automatically by nature of nothingness, consciousness also exists as nothing. Accordingly, consciousness in the beyond state of God is ever and ever latent in God, who is by nature the everything, infinite and unlimited and unbounded. Thus, automatically, by his very nature of being the everything, God in the God is state has in him ever and ever infinite power, infinite knowledge, infinite bliss, and all that is infinitely glorious or beautiful. Because God is the everything and infinite, the opposite of the everything, which is the nothing, must be most finite. Therefore, the nothing is latent in the God state as the most finite, or in the infinite state of God, which is the everything, there is latent the most finite state of the nothing. Therefore, I'll read again. Therefore, the nothing is latent in the God is state as the most finite, or in the infinite state of God, which is the everything, there is latent the most finite state of the nothing. It is only natural that when this latent and most finite nothing manifests, it ought to manifest as most finite. But it is a most paradoxical fact that when this most finite nothing manifests, its manifestation gradually expands ad infinitum. This thing that gives infinity to the most finite nothing is God's own latent trio nature of infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss, which by virtue of being the nature of God, obviously pervades the infinitude of the God is state latently. Naturally, this infinite trio nature also envelops this most finite nothing when latent in the infinity of the everything. Anybody wants to take a crack at explaining this?
This in Sanskrit, the name of this three trio thing is Satchidanand.
Anand, yeah,
Satchidanand.
Sachidanand.
There are three words actually.
So I think what I'll at least tell you what I am understanding, and please correct me if I am in the right way. So though it the nothing which is latent initially, and when it starts manifesting, it is manifested through the trio nature, and that nothing state actually goes on expanding ad infinitum, which is paradoxical because nothing is finite. We agreed to that three paragraphs above, saying nothing is finite. But he says nothing in the context of the trio nature of the God is expanding to a point where it expands ad infinitum. That's what I got till now. Let's continue.
Uh, what I can comment here is basically there are, and it's a very tough read, I know. One thing he says this, therefore, anything that is latent in everything is of the nothing. So, what I've understood is everything is the nature of infinitude. So, this is the reality which can't be explained or expressed. But if you remember the whim, most original whim, the urge to know itself, this was latent in this everything. Okay. Anything that is latent, Baba describes it as illusion. Basically, it's nothing. So when we look at the big picture, when he talks about, remember where I've said earlier that material evolution is false illusion and spiritual involution going through the planes is real illusion, and that false illusion plus real illusion is equal to zero. And when he talks about the divine vacuum, you will come across this word later when he talks about the 10 states of God, where in this divine vacuum can be equivalent to a still ocean. Okay, there are no waves and it's not even aware of itself. You can think of it as a baby which is sleeping and it's not even aware of itself. So this is supposed to be the most original state of God, and everything that happens, all this creation, the whim, the infinite consciousness, the infinite unconsciousness, evolution, all this is illusion. So this is basically the nothing which is latent in this everything. So whatever is coming out of this, so it's a very paradoxical statement, I know, and it's a very tough description, I know. So this is my take on it. It's that this beyond state is the reality, is the infinitude, but because of the whim, this whole consciousness that has come out, infinite consciousness, infinite unconsciousness, evolution, it is all part of the nothing and it's all illusion. And one more thing I would like to add in discourses, Baba had said, wherever there is reality, there is its shadow. And that shadow is the Maya. And Maya is not illusion. Maya is the creator of illusion. It is the principle of ignorance. So when you are asleep, there is no shadow. Only when you wake up and look into the sun, the shadow is behind you. And when you are not facing the sun, you see your shadow, which is your Maya. And that Maya can be infinite because reality is also infinite. So whenever there is creation, whenever the whim happens, duality starts. And whenever you have duality, you will have both infinite Maya and infinite reality. So I don't know whether I'm making sense.
Can you repeat the Maya and shadow bit again?
Okay. Please read. See, Discourses is a very beautiful book. There is a chapter on Maya. Okay. There are four sections on it. And I can tell you the page number on 7th edition. where he says that, there are on the fourth part, it is called about faith. You can make a note, part 4, God and Maya, page number 384 in Discourses 7th edition. I will send it to you by WhatsApp. So here he says that, okay, I'll just read this if you don't mind. God
Sure.
is infinite because he's above the limiting opposites of duality. He's above the limited aspects of good and bad, small and great, right and wrong, virtue and vice, happiness and misery. Therefore, he is infinite. If God were good rather than bad, or bad rather than good, or if he was small rather than great, or great rather than small, or if he was virtuous and so on and so forth, he would be finite and not infinite. Only by being above duality is God infinite. Whatever is infinite transcends duality. It cannot be a part of duality. That which is truly infinite cannot be the dual part of the finite. If the infinite is regarded as existing side by side with the finite, it is no longer infinite. For it then becomes the second part of duality of God, a part of duality. God, who is infinite, cannot descend into duality. So the apparent existence of duality. See, look at the word apparent. So the apparent existence of duality as infinite God and the finite world is illusory. Let me repeat that. So the apparent existence of duality as infinite God and the finite world, which is creation, is illusory. God alone is real, which is just the beyond God state is what it means. God alone is real. He is infinite, one without a second. The existence of the finite is only apparent. It is false. It is not real. How does the false world of finite things come into existence? This is talking about creation. Why does it exist? It is created by Maya, or the principle of ignorance. Maya is not illusion. Maya is the creator of illusion. Maya is not false. Maya is that which gives false impressions. Maya is not unreal. It is that which makes the real appear unreal and the unreal appear real. Maya is not duality. Maya is that which causes duality. So this is a very important aspect of understanding, duality and Maya also, in this context. So
Brilliant.
I'll stop.
I I had a drop, so I missed this whole thing. There was a drop in my connection.
You
Okay.
can read page number 384 of the courses. That will
Yeah,
help.
yeah, I've read this and I know what you're saying. We call it secondless reality.
Secondless reality.
Secondless reality.
Yeah.
That is what we are at this stage on the what we are reading. We have not differentiated as yet.
Yeah. Okay. So I continue from Om point. Therefore, I think people can go back to mute. Therefore, when this most finite nothing becomes manifested as nothingness, the manifestation of the most finite nothing, closely linked with and stretched forth by the simultaneous projection of the latent, all pervading, infinite, trio nature of God, gradually expands ad infinitum and gets apparently manifested as infinite nothingness or the creation, and hence the universe of nothingness, which is illusory, can be called God's shadow. And God, being infinite, his shadow is also infinite. When it manifests the nothing, which is most finite and latent in the everything, projects out from a most finite point in the everything where the nothing as most finite is embodied. The most finite point from where the nothing projects out as nothingness is called the creation point or the Om point. This creation point is naturally also in the everything, which means in God, in the beyond state. So the most finite nothing projects as the creation out of the infinite everything through the most finite creation point into the infinity of the infinitude of God is state. We will see what he means by infinite. The whole creation, I'm reading the footnote, the whole creation has come out of the nothing. Out of the nothing, two things have emerged: evolution and production. Out of the nothing, seven states of gas came into being. The seventh evolved state is hydrogen. Out of the seventh gaseous state, evolution and production came into being. Creation can be reconciled with evolution because all is in seven stages of production, seven stages of evolution, and seven stages of involution. So it is said that God created the universe in 7 days. From the nothing, most finite shadow and infinite shadow emerged simultaneously. It's amazing.
Now here, God's one day, as we talked yesterday, it's the other side. Okay, it's several lifetimes for us.
Correct. The length of
Yeah,
God's
yeah.
time and human time. So the most finite nothing projects as the creation out of the infinite everything through the most finite creation point into the infinity of the infinitude of God is state. In short, when the most finite nothing gets projected as nothingness through the most finite creation point, which is also in the infinity pervaded by the infinite trio nature of God, the projection of the most finite nothingness closely linked and upheld the all pervading infinite trio nature of God gradually expands ad infinitum and manifests apparently as infinite nothingness or as infinite creation. So manifests apparently as infinite nothingness or as infinite creation. The whim or the lahar. The cause which led the most finite nothing, latent in the infinite everything, to manifest itself as infinite nothingness is the original cause called the cause. The cause is just nothing but the whim or lahar of God. This original whim can also be called the first word uttered by God. Who am I? The infinitude of the God is state made God absolutely independent. And by virtue of being absolutely independent, it is but natural for God to exercise his infinite whim to experience and enjoy his own infinity. To exercise a whim is always the mark of an independent nature because it is whimsicality that always colors the independent nature. It is the original infinite whim which is responsible for giving cause to the latent all that was of the nothing to manifest as nothingness. But before God exercised his original infinite whim to make manifest the latent all that was of the nothing, this whim of God was itself latent as the nothing in the everything of the infinitude of absolutely independent God in the God is state. How is it then possible for the latent, original, infinite whim to surge in God and make manifest itself and all that is latent of the nothing as nothingness? Whim, after all, is a whim, and by its very nature, it is such that Why, wherefore, when can find no place in its nature. A whim may come at any moment. It may come now or after a few months or after years, and it may not come at all. Similarly, the original infinite whim, after all, is a whim. And two, it is the whim of God in the state of infinitude. This whim may not surge in God at all, and if it surges, either at any moment, or after thousands of years, or after a million cycles, it need not be surprising. Okay, the original whim. I'll start from the bottom. Original whim surged, and God, as creator, preserver, and destroyer, manifested with his paraphernalia. Creator is himself created, preserver is himself preserved, destroyer is himself destroyed. So, illusion, same pattern and design, but innumerable and varied forms of display. God is in the creator, preserver, destroyer roles, conscious of illusion, unconscious of self. Oh, that's the God state. Okay. Then you have the beyond God state and the beyond God state. The beyond God state is the is state, unconscious of self and of illusion. In the beyond God, conscious of self and three infinite aspects, but unconscious of illusion, no pattern or design, since there's only oneness. Then you come to the God in the creator, preserver, destroyer, conscious of illusion, unconscious of self. So with that, we are almost at the end of our 9 o'clock window. Can we do another page? Okay. Thus, it is that the original infinite whim of God in the state of infinitude once surged, and it surged both spontaneously and all of a sudden in absolutely independent God who is eternally eternal. Hence, this whim, which once surged, once began the beginning of all things in creation. In short, this original infinite latent whim of God in the state of infinitude, once it surged in God, who is absolutely independent, made itself manifest. And simultaneously with its manifestation, it manifested the latent all that was of the nothing as nothingness. Thus, the whim created the nothing. Let us recapitulate how infinite nothing came out of the most finite everything. God beyond is infinite everything. Infinite everything may be compared to an infinite limitless ocean. Therefore, this limitless ocean is infinite everything. Thus, every drop in the ocean is most finite everything. In short, if infinite ocean is infinite everything, then every drop of the ocean is most finite everything. Okay, before the whim surges in the limitless ocean and before creation is manifested, the creation point, Om point, through which the creation is ejected, is itself in the limitless ocean as infinite everything. Because prior to the surging of the whim, perfect tranquility prevailed and pervaded the limitless ocean. There was no question of drops of the ocean, and there was no separateness. There was limitless ocean as infinite everything. At the instant when the whim surged in the infinite everything, the creation point or Om point manifested as the most finite everything. infinite nothing was latent in the infinite everything, but when the whim surged, the infinite nothing got manifested through the most finite everything, which is the Om point. Thus, through the most finite everything, the infinite nothing is ejected gradually, manifesting itself as expanding ad infinitum. Simultaneously, with the projection of the latent nothing and with the manifestation of nothingness, the consciousness which existed as nothing, latent in the infinitude of the God is state, also got projected and manifested itself gradually as the consciousness of God and made God experience himself as God the Creator of all the things that projected out of his state of the everything as nothingness. Whereupon, gradually gaining full consciousness, God, in the state of Creator, became entangled in the maze of most finite nothingness, found as infinite, stretched out and upheld through his own infinite trio nature. The paradoxical irony is that the infinity itself of God makes it infinitely difficult for God to escape the false apparent infinity of nothingness, which goes on expanding ad infinitum through the closely linked infinite trio nature of God, which is infinite power, bliss, and knowledge. But this entanglement is absolutely necessary in order that the God in the infinitude of the God is state should gain consciousness fully and completely for himself and of his infinite reality, and in this way experience consciously his unbounded, unlimited, infinite trio nature of infinite power, infinite knowledge, and infinite bliss. The fundamental fact is that full consciousness, once gained, can never be lost. It remains eternally, regardless of whether that consciousness fully gained is the consciousness of the false nothingness experienced as real, or whether that consciousness is the consciousness of reality itself. Eventually, consciousness does make God realize his own reality after that same consciousness has attained complete maturity. Consciousness is fully matured to realize reality only after it is nurtured by the apparent awareness of the false. This awareness of the false as real becomes so intensified during the course of the evolution of consciousness that the consciousness steeped in false awareness makes God aware only of the false, which is experienced by God as the real. That is, God, as creator, falsely experiences the manifestation of the nothing as real and everything. In order that the latent consciousness of God in the God is state should make it possible for God to realize his own eternal reality, the projection of that latent consciousness in everything, which when projected outwards becomes focused on the false infinity of nothingness, should be withdrawn inwardly. By such an inward withdrawal, the focus of the same consciousness becomes centered on the infinity of everything, from which it had projected outwards and given rise to the experience of infinite nothingness rather than the experience of the infinity of everything. I'll pause here, though it's not a logical point, but I think we can pick up from one page earlier if everybody agrees to retain continuity.
So let us ask if everyone's awake.
Yes,
Was
yes,
very
yes.
heavy today.
It sure was.
So what about Sunil, Namita? What do you,
I was listening, but it was heavy today. I need to read it again.
you need to
Uh,
read, everyone needs to read.
Everybody needs to read. Yes.
Yeah, everyone needs to read, and we will need more inputs here. Uh,
I, I
yeah, just,
Hi.
yeah,
I
yeah.
I've started redrawing the diagrams in the book, and it makes it easier for me to understand. So I've done
Excellent.
a couple of them yesterday, and
Good.
I understand it better, and I can simplify it based on how much very little I know, and that's taking me somewhere. But it's very complicated. But I want to simplify it to understand how is it relevant to me, and how can I reach Baba very quickly.
So why don't you share your simplification?
I will send you the diagrams.
We can
I
share
understand
here. Why can't we share it here? We can share it here.
all. Yeah, I will take
We
a
can talk
photo of
about
it
it.
because I drew it. Um, okay, so I understand the stages which previously I didn't understand. Stone, then the metal, then plant, fish, animals, and then man, and all the sanskaras. If you do nothing and you just float on the sea, you'll still take so many lifetimes and you'll eventually get there. But if you kind of have, I don't know what to do. You do meditate and you get a guru, then you can shorten the distance between you and the infinite.
Very
And
right.
I had this dilemma in my head, whether God, Baba knows about Om, or Om is only related to Hindus. But when I see Baba talking about Om, I feel nicer meditating on Om. I always have this friction within my head. I don't know whether I'm going at a crossroads with what Baba taught and what I have known as a Hindu. But as and when I'm going through these texts, it's kind of decoding many things and it's simplifying. And another observation is Baba is an interactive God. It's not that he's just given you a text, he unfolds himself within you and gives you answers. And that's a journey which I really enjoy. And I'm very, very grateful to that, to Baba. And another thing is, uh, to be in the same zone as all of you who've read the text many times. It's like, being in a kindergarten and being with postgraduate students. So it's really nice. It gives you a perspective, and in your simple ways how you can learn from people like you. I like Karthik's very steady pace of reading, and Kama's sharing of knowledge, which I'm sure he has acquired through a lot of reading. And I am also reading discourses on my page, Meher Baba Singapore, every day. And many of these things do resonate there as well. I don't internalize a lot of information, but some of it stays with me. And it's getting me there. I feel that my little drop of the big ocean is understanding itself. I understand my power. I understand that there's a lot of Baba in me, and yeah, that's about all.
So,
Awesome.
Nobita, I am a backbencher, so maybe I'll see you outside, going outside the school. So you got to.
So what I suggest is tomorrow we'll start with your diagrams and then
Yes,
jump back into the text. So you send us the photographs in advance. We'll put them
yes.
up on the screen, and then you can talk about it. Then we will
I
continue
will.
with where we left off.
Yeah,
Yes, I will do
I
that.
think
I am technologically challenged. Soon I will take the
Send it on
photos, and then
WhatsApp to
soon.
me.
Yeah. I'll
Yeah,
do that. Yeah, I think that's better.
yeah.
And it's so, the first few chapters I was really not understanding a whole lot. Then I started making pictures while you were reading. And
Okay.
suddenly I realized that, understanding these diagrams is simpler than understanding the words. And I had my aha moment.
Very
And
nice.
so very, very grateful. Yeah.
Very nice. So actually, even the diagrams, though I've seen them before, the intensive read and this collaborative effort has really uncovered a lot more. But still, there's a lot remains to be uncovered and understood completely. But
You
I
know,
think
there are books for dummies. These diagrams are for people like me who don't understand the text. So I like that. Baba has covered all of us, of all intellect levels.
absolutely all the drops.
Thank you so much. Really,
Thank
really
you, thank
grateful for this
thank you. Jai
opportunity.
Baba.
I have a question
Sure.
besides everybody is sitting at home. How do you keep yourself sane?
Yeah, oh, I,
It's not
I,
easy.
I am self-quarantined for the last 10 years. For me, life
Yes.
came, except for the noise which is not there now. There was noise earlier outside.
I
Ah,
see. Today I came to office because in 2 days they will lock down offices also. So I walked to office to have a last feel of what it feels like being in office. And then when it becomes out of bound, you feel like what are we going to do? I'm thinking of creating a theme over the week and taking a theme from whatever I understand of these books and imbibing it in my life. If I'm able to write something on it, I'll share that as well on the WhatsApp group, and then perhaps
On the
you
team.
all can
Sure.
add.
Sure. Look
Yeah.
forward to that.
sure.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Jay Baba. Have a good day.
Yeah. Jai
Thank you.
Baba, everybody. Have a
Jai
good
Baba.
Sunday.
Jai Baba.
Thank you. Thank you. Jai Baba.